Welcome back to Definitely Not Definitive. I'm Ken.
And I'm Bethany.
We're just a pondering couple in love that loves reacting to some Pokemon.
We do. This pondering couple does like Pokemon.
So we're checking out another one of Loxton and Noggin's videos about the different types of Pokemon. This one is about the poison Pokemon, so every poison type Pokemon explained.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna be every one, I guess, because this was 6 years ago, so more poison Pokemon have come out since then. But, you know, at the time, it was every poison Pokemon.
It's the vast majority of the poison Pokemon.
We got a Pokemon playlist for you for all of our reactions down below in the description of this video. Are you ready to do this?
I'm ready.
You ready, Bucky?
Okay. You're all out of antidotes. Shouldn't have let that Seviper get the better of you.
You never let that happen.
Now you're panicking. Better
Death.
get that Vulpix to a Pokemon Center quick.
Oh no, he fainted.
Poison type Pokemon. This type is
like
one
the
of the few types that gets forgotten, but when it comes down to it, the poison type is one of the better typings. Normally paired with grass or bug, this type has a good amount of moves that rely on damage over time rather than all at once. And with the introduction of fairy type, the poison type has skyrocketed up the ranks. But what now if I told you that most poison type Pokemon aren't actually poisonous? And what if I went further and explained what types of poison they use, because that's what today's video is all about.
Nice.
Poisonous Pokemon that aren't poisonous that use a poison.
But first, a bonus fact
Feels like a
brought
lot.
to you by today's sponsor, Catalyst Mints. Did you know that caffeine is technically a poison? To bugs though, not humans. Plants produce it so that when bugs eat their beans, they die from having too much energy. Then humans came along, took over the plant's breeding patterns to make
humans.
caffeine even stronger. And now with Catalyst Mints and their newly released nootropic energy powders, you can get all of that energy without the guilt of energy drinks and fancy coffees. And that energy lasts a lot longer too. That's right, Catalyst has finally launched a line of energy powders and epic shaker bottles, from a delicious blue raspberry to a mouth-watering watermelon. And you can pre-order these energy powders, the link at the top of the description, and use the coupon code Noggin for a discount on top of the pre-order discount. Now let's get back to talking about people poisons that affect people. And hey, just so you know, there will be a few gross images in this video in case you are easily nauseated. There's
Thanks for the
nothing
warning.
extreme though. So first off, let's cover that big claim. Not all of the poison type Pokemon are poisonous. They may all be toxic or carry toxins, but they are not inherently poisonous. So let's go over what makes them different. It all comes down to delivery. Being toxic just means that there is a biologically produced chemical that alters the normal function of another organism. Once a toxin gets into a victim, the toxin travels through the bloodstream and gets into places it shouldn't, like the heart or the brain. And let's not forget about all of the other vital organs that toxins can shut down. This is why urgent care and antidotes are so important. So, what are the main types of toxin? Poison and venom. In the case of Pokemon, many of them are poisonous, but many aren't poisonous at all, but venomous instead. Let's talk about the difference here. A poison is a toxin that you ingest or come into contact with. Pretty much any toxin that gets into your body or bloodstream somewhat indirectly, like licking a colorful dart frog. Better yet, just touching them is enough for our skin to absorb the dangerous amount of poison. Most animals that are poisonous use it as a defense mechanism. Unlike most venomous creatures, a poisonous creature is normally unable to control their poison, as it is most likely naturally secreted out of their skin or special glands on the animal's body. There are many frogs, bugs, and even some birds that are poisonous. A good rule is, in the real world, don't try and catch something you've never seen before. Shoot, even if you've seen a dart frog before, don't catch it. You dumb? But thankfully, most poisonous things won't go out of their way to attack you, like poison oak. It's a plant. Doesn't really go out of its way to strike you, but bump into it and you've got yourself a very uncomfortable rash. So the true definition of poisonous is something that delivers toxins without a direct delivery system. Now venomous, that's a whole other ballgame there. These guys bite, oftentimes literally. A venomous creature inflicts its toxins by injecting the toxins directly into a wound, often created by their own fangs or claws. A good rule of thumb for figuring out if something is poisonous or venomous is, did the creature bite you or did you bite it? If it bit you and you die, it's likely because it is venomous. And if you bite it and you die, chances are
You're an
it's
idiot.
poisonous. Now, if you bite it and it dies, does that make you venomous? Regardless, the true definition of venomous is something that delivers toxins with a delivery system directly. Exactly. So now we know that the Pokemon type Poison really just means toxic, or an animal that has toxins. Now, as always, to make things go a bit quicker and easier, I'm going to group up the Pokemon that are very similar. I'm looking at you, Ekans, Arbok, and Seviper. I feel like most of these Pokemon are pretty easy to explain, so I'm going to do a huge group of them, and any neat ones I'll point out. So here we go. We got snakes, Ekans, Arbok, and Seviper. Not all snakes have a venomous bite, but plenty of them do, and some venomous snakes are actually able to dry strike or bite without actually injecting any venom if they so choose. The King Cobra, which Arbok is based on backwards, is one of the most venomous snakes in the world, and vipers, by definition, are venomous snakes. Most snake venoms classify as hemotoxins, meaning they affect the blood itself. Often it's a blood thickener, slowing down or even stopping the bloodstream. Ew. And this is gross. Next up, we have the insect or bug-like Pokemon: Poipole, Naganadel, Weedle, Kakuna, Beedrill, Venipede, Whirlipede, Scolipede, Skorupi, and Drapion. These Pokemon all have similar delivery methods of their venom: stingers. Compared to snakes, these bugs generally have much stronger venom, albeit because they're tiny, you get way less of it. Let's look at the Asian giant hornet for an example here. It's what Beedrill is based on. It's the deadliest bee there is, and there are plenty of cases of humans dying from a single sting. And this is all thanks to its deadly neurotoxin, which blocks the signals between your brain and nervous system, leading to paralysis and cardiac arrest. And as for scorpions, their venom often acts the same way. But there are also scorpions whose venom will cause hallucinations, or cause effects similar to Viagra. Before you die, of course. Don't go getting stung by scorpions. Spinarak and Ariados are also bugs, but they use fangs instead of stingers. Though unlike many snakes, venomous spider bites will often cause necrosis, or death of the cells, leaving big holes of rotten flesh within you. Tentacool and Tentacruel are cruel dudes based off of box jellyfish, one of the world's most venomous creatures altogether. Unlike normal stingers, jellyfish use a cell-like structure that has millions of stingers that actually detach and stay in your skin, constantly releasing toxins into your system. Often, jellyfish venom causes hyperkalemia, which raises your blood pressure far beyond what is safe and causes your cardiovascular system to collapse. What really sucks is when you're stung by a jellyfish, you are often out in the ocean, so it's a race to see what kills you, the venom or the drowning. Up next are Pokemon that inflict their venom by biting or stabbing it into your system, similar to the way snakes attack. Really, they should be in the same category as the snakes, but I figured, snakes are so iconic they need their own category. Here we have Zubat, Golbat, Crobat, Mareanie, Toxapex, Krogunk, and Toxicroak. Interestingly, bats are not venomous at all. But if you stretch the definition of venomous, the vampire bat could be seen as venomous due to technicality. Its saliva has compounds in it that act as blood thinners, preventing bite wounds from clotting for an extended period of time. This is likely where the Zubat line gets its poison typing. Mareanie and Toxapex are based on the Crown of Thorns starfish. Though unlike that starfish, these Pokemon can shoot their spikes. This starfish, though, is a spiky nightmare of a starfish filled with saponin toxins, which causes a sharp pain that lasts for hours. Krogunk and Toxicroak are interesting. Being frogs, you would assume that they are poisonous, like many frogs are. But then Game Freak went and gave these guys sharp finger bits they used to stab the venom into their prey. Though interestingly, the Corythromantis greenigi frog actually was only recently found to have small venomous barbs on its head. It kinda headbutts stuff while kissing it with a cocktail of toxins. So it isn't totally out there to have a venomous frog. Next are Pokemon that use quills or spines tipped with toxins, not to be confused with stingers. They are much more like barbs, normally not used as a way to attack, but more of a way to just dissuade predators from attacking them. This is still technically a type of delivery method, so they are in fact venomous. Also, Mareanie and Toxapex could also fit into this category. But here we have Nidoran, Nidorina, Nidorino, Nidoqueen, and Nidoking. These Pokemon have backs covered in barbs and spikes, which cause wounds that inject venom into the attacker's bloodstream. By secreting a toxic chemical and coating their spikes, they become similar in concept to the rockfish. If you attack its back, you'll get a venomous injection. Quillfish is based off of a pufferfish, which I've heard is to die for. Literally. I've heard of food poisoning, but not of food venoming. I'm sorry, it's a bad joke. Unknown to many, the real-life pufferfish quills are tipped with toxins, so it's venomous to touch and poisonous to eat. A whole double whammy of fun. Roserade and Roselia have nasty rose thorns on their hands that are laced with toxins. They use these thorns to stab enemies and deliver these toxins, making their toxin technically a venom. While most real rose thorns themselves aren't venomous or poisonous, many species of rose have a symbiotic relationship with the Sporothrix schenki on their horns, which is a fungus that causes sporotrichosis, or a really, really irritating rotten rash. Nihilego injects neurotoxins into the host it attaches to. That's the toxin that affects the brain and its functions, and it does so likely the same way jellyfish do, through very, very tiny barbs on its danglies. And with that, we are done with the venomous Pokemon. And next up are the poisonous Pokemon. You know, like the type suggests. So these upcoming Pokemon are either toxic by just touch, like Poison Ivy or Dart Frogs, or are poisonous if you eat them. Why you're eating them, I'll never know. Or poisonous gases that you could accidentally breathe in. Though I guess eating something pretty much is just touching something a lot and internally. So there's that. First up, we have the Bulbasaur line. These weird cabbages are actually in fact on the back of a toad or frog-like dinosaur creature. And interestingly, one of the most common types of animal that is poisonous is the frog. So it could be either the frog or the plant part secreting poisonous powders or liquids all over itself. And then there's
both.
Grimer. Pure pollution. Remember back in the 90s when every cartoon was about pollution and pollution was just kind of purple black goo that ran amok? Well, that's what we've got here. Good old toxic pollution sludge. So these two Pokemon are full of dirty sewage bacteria and polluted chemicals. So much of them that it's dangerous to touch. And as for their Alolan forms, they are both just Technicolor pollution. No, really, just take a Grimer or a Muck and add in a mixture of motor oil and solid trash. And there you go, Alolan Muck. Oddish is a little odd. It's based on the Mandrake plant, a highly poisonous plant that was used in many medieval era poisons and potions. They
Mandrake.
all sorts of hallucinations.
Put out my screen.
Bloom and Vileplume are a little different though, and I feel like they should be in a category of their own. There are so many Pokemon that share a trait of releasing poisonous gases or powders. In fact, I am gonna make that a category. Well then, next up are Pokemon that do just that, and we will start off with Bloom and Vileplume. They are based off of the Rafflesia arnoldi, a terrible smelling plant that only 1 in 1,000 people actually enjoy the smell of. This plant is said to smell like the rotting carcass of a dead animal.
Oh,
What?
God.
This
One
plant
person
is
like that.
not the corpse flower. That is another plant, i.e., kind of like Victory Bell. The putrid stench of these flowers is used to attract flies and such to pollinate the plant. These Pokemon are likely made poison type based on the terrible smell and gas released by the plant, and they were even given a toxic pollen to reflect that. Fungus and Amoonguss are both mushroom
Fungus and
Pokemon.
Amoonguss.
They release clouds of poisonous spores when threatened, and much like real poisonous mushrooms, they are poisonous to ingest or to breathe in the spores from. Mushroom spores are pretty much their way of reproducing. If the spores happen to land on something that it could make a home of, then the fungus will start to grow. If this
We're
happens to be
continuing into
inside of your lungs,
zombie infected
then yeah, the fungus will start to grow. Coughing and wheezing are floating balls of air pollution. They love to mix toxic gas with garbage and create a poisonous gas, and this gas also helps it float. Poison gas works the same way secreted poison does, except you breathe it in instead of touching it with your skin. I mean, obviously. So think nerve gas. You breathe it in and you fall over paralyzed and in extreme seizure pain until you die. Yay! Though I doubt coughing and wheezing are that bad though. Gulpin is modeled after a stomach? Maybe a gallbladder? This guy releases vile and disgusting
People
gas
making kissy
as
faces.
it digests. Although it may not be directly toxic, as the
That's
gas
true,
is
they
said to interfere with normal breathing as it's so gross. Imagine just suffocating because something smells that bad. You'd rather die than breathe it in. Swalot, though, is said to have poisonous stomach acid that it burps up onto foes. Gross. Trubbish and Garbodor are living garbage bags made from special conditions that happened to give it life. This guy reeks of the bad stuff. Also, apparently they are quite burpy, as these little guys can knock out an adult and keep them bedridden for a week just by smelling a burp. Gross. And as such, they can and do spew poisonous gases. Bellsprout, Weepinbell, and Victory Bell seem to have a thing for eating people's heads, especially tasty blue-haired heads of comedic relief characters. Like many plants, they are poisonous to eat, and also have poisonous digestive acid deep inside their bells, and their powdery pollen is poisonous as well. Stunky and Skunktank really stink, and try not to breathe any in because its gas is a powerful toxic gas that can be smelt over a mile away and lasts for 24 hours.
Oh, damn.
God, I would hate if my my Houndoom
Wow.
got sprayed. There is no amount of tomato paste
I was
in the
thinking tomato paste, too.
world for that smell. Badoo, unlike its evolved forms, just releases toxic spores. Although, at most, Badoo could only cause some mild sneezing or a runny nose. It's just so cute. Venonat, Venomoth, and Dustox are all very similar to each other. These moth Pokemon shake their wings as they fly, releasing a multitude of different powders from their body, some of which can poison you on contact and others paralyze you. These Pokemon are definitely ones you want to stay upwind from. Typically, moths and butterflies aren't poisonous unless you eat them, but some moths can spread disease because of what they land on. They get all dirty and then land in something and leave behind their dirty dust. No good for people with allergies. Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar are more than just ghosts. They are poisonous ghosts. Now, Ghastly is pretty easy to pick out why he's poisonous. You see, they are 95% poison gas and 5% ghost, so a ghost just happened to find some poison gas and possess it. In fact, this
Okay.
gas
That was
is
a cool
so
image.
potent,
Yeah.
they are able to cause an Indian elephant to go unconscious in just 2 seconds. Like, that
Damn.
is so fast. I don't even think anyone's body can process poison fast enough to do that. That is ridiculous. You have to breathe it in, it has to go through your lungs and then into your bloodstream, and then the bloodstream has to be potently filled enough with it, and then that has to reach your brain. 2 seconds is ridiculous. Normally it takes like a minute. So I guess it could be that it could go straight to your brain because of Ghastly's ghostly bit. It just floats through your head, bringing the toxin with it. Yeah, that must be it. There's no logical explanation otherwise. As for Haunter
Well,
and
it's a
Gengar,
ghost
they both have
inside of gas,
gaseous
so it's
traits
not really
left
logical to
over
give.
from Ghastly. Haunter is actually still made up of gas and loves to lick people with its gasless, deadly tongue. And Gengar can disappear into a shadow as if it were dissolving into gas, so both of them are capable of becoming poisonous gas at will. Skrelp gets bullied
Skrelp.
quite a bit due to its size, so it will release a thick cloud of poisonous spit in an attempt at scaring the attackers away, much
cloud
like
of
the
spit?
ink of a squid, except toxic. Dragalge, though. Ooh, now this dude. Ooh, this guy's poisonous spit is so acidic it can erode the hull of tankers. In fact,
LG
this isn't
seahorse,
that
yeah.
far off from real seahorses. Not the tanker part, the poisonous bit. There are plenty of species of seahorses that use poison to ward off predators. And they
didn't know
need
that.
it. Have you ever seen a seahorse try to swim away from something? They are just the worst at it. And lastly, Salandit and Salazzle are special. These two are able
What a
to
great name.
poison the otherwise immune
Salazzle
to
looks like
poison
she has some
steel-type
sass.
Pokemon. These small lizards release a poisonous gas from the base of their tail. This gas is quite fragrant and can cause dizziness in humans. Some have figured out how to turn it into a perfume. This gas is quite stronger once it evolves into a Salazzle, though, with the ability to almost mind control the males of the species. So clearly it is a slight neurotoxin. But in the case of poisoning steel types, it must be due to their corrosion ability. Their poisonous gas is corrosive to metal, which does not come
Ultimate
as a
sass
huge
master.
surprise. There is a huge list of poisonous gases that can corrode metal over time. And that's that. Man, when you really think about it, real-world poisonous and venomous animals are the closest things we have to Pokemon, and they are scary. And now more than ever, I want a platypus Pokemon. As if they weren't strange enough, they also have venomous barbs on their back legs. Like, what the heck? Why isn't a platypus a Pokemon? There better be a water starter that's a platypus that eventually becomes water poison type. That just has to happen. So, what is your favorite poison type Pokemon? And until next time, never stop using your noggin.
That was interesting, checking out the different types of poison, and I like, just love his the way that he lays out the videos, and like just to start off with the difference between what is like a poison versus venomous. I thought that was really smart.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was sitting here thinking, yeah, what is that difference? I've never associated venomous with plants, and that's always been something I've associated with animals or insects. So like, I'm sure I learned it at some point, but I never actually sat and really thought about it. So when he was laying it out, I was like, thank God he said all this, because like that really helped.
Yeah, exactly. Sazzle has the best name, I think, out of all of them.
Yeah, I really liked that name. It was good to watch this on a somewhat disturbing level, just like to see the real life parallels to the different Pokemon and things, like the starfish with those barbs that just look very intense. Obviously, the murder hornets out of Asia are a thing of nightmares. We actually, where we live, have come across some black widows. Thankfully, no bites yet. I'm going to knock on wood just as I say that.
Yep.
but you know, we have had them on our walks. We've come across them and we've seen them and made sure to pull the dogs away from their little webs, and we've had a few in our backyard. So like, I don't know, in like a very unsettling way, it was good to see this and be reminded of like the inspiration that's pulled from the real world to create some of these creatures.
Yeah. So this is gonna be a kind of a disgusting story that I'm about to tell. 'Cause, I mean, it's about poison, and there's some disgusting images in there. But I just couldn't help but think, like, when it was talking about like spiders and like the venom and like how like the way that they when they secrete their venom, it's like necropath
Necrosis.
Necrosis.
It causes necrosis.
Causes necrosis and just kind of like leaves like a hole there, you know. And guy I worked with had gotten bit by like a brown, I think recluse, I think it was. Didn't realize it at the time, like that's what he got bit by. But like it started off as a bite on his arm, then it like got like bigger, and eventually like the general manager's like, okay, yeah, you need to go to the doctor in the hospital like right away and then get that checked out. And he's like, yeah, and I went to the doctor. And the doctor just kind of like squeezed the pus out, like the venom.
Oh god.
He's like, and it left like a scar there for his like because of how venomous it was.
Oh god.
So yeah, I told you it was a disturbing story. It was disgusting.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. I mean, this is not even nearly going to be as gross as that. But like when they were talking about poison oak, I remember as a kid, I wound up getting, I had a run-in with either poison oak or poison ivy. I couldn't remember. Did not realize it. And it was on my ankle. And so I was scratching and kept scratching. And then like no matter how much I scratched, I couldn't seem to like resolve the itch. It was just so terrible. And like I remember at one point, because we were in, I think it was Michigan, and there was like a paddle for a kayak or something. So I just took that paddle and just started to like scrape it against my ankle because I was like, oh, this is finally bringing me a little bit of relief. But then I looked down, and basically what I've been doing is just like scraping away layers of skin because it itched so bad. So like the paddle was bloody, and then like my ankle was bloody. And so yeah, these poisonous and toxic and venomous things are no joke.
I will say that the takeaway kind of a lot of this was a lot of the real life stuff that they are based off of. The Pokemon themselves, there's no one Pokemon that like jumped out. Like I mean, like Rough Rock or whatever that last time. The the dog that we really liked, Rockruff. I said it backwards. There's no one that sticked out to me like that, like other than like Sazzle. Just the name itself and like just their attitude and the fact that like she can they turn it like into like a perfume or whatever because like it can control the minds of the male species. Yeah,
that was fascinating.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So I guess maybe that would be the one Pokemon that was my favorite out of these. But yeah, other than that, I'm just like there's no one other Pokemon that really stood out. I'm like, oh man, that Pokemon looks awesome. I don't know. Was there any for you?
Well, I feel embarrassed to say, but the thing that stuck out to me, it was actually a real life thing again, rather than Pokemon. But it was the frog or the toad that has like the little barbs on the head. So they said that they're like, so he headbutts you to kiss you with his poison, basically. Yeah. And I don't know, just the way that he described it and the image of I was just like, that stuck with me for some reason. I was like, I like the fact that his method of transmitting his toxin is to headbutt things. That just made me happy for some bizarre reason.
So let us know what your favorite poison type of Pokemon was, and check out all of our Pokemon reactions in a playlist. Thanks so much for seeing our reaction for Pokemon, but just keep in mind
that our reaction is definitely not definitive.